I like Kelsey all the way this week for all the tight ends. I also like maybe Tyler Eifert just because they're low on receivers.
Yeah, he doesn't have a whole lot of options there in Cincinnati.
Yeah, so steer to Kelsey or Eifert, or you could even go because obviously we know that Jordan Reed probably isn't going to play, and he's really cheap. So it's not just for the 4 p.m. game that we're going to get to, but overall Vernon Davis is a pretty nice play this week. Even though Arizona doesn't really allow too many points to the tight end, I think the way that they use tight end is an overall
big part of that offense.
Yeah, they got a pretty good offense there in Washington, so I like the possibility of him going off. So, excuse me, if you're low on money when you get to there, but I would go probably Kelsey first, Eifert second, and then Vernon Davis.
Okay, so yeah, I would definitely do both of those two over Vernon Davis. I don't know if you saw the news out of Foxborough today, but Gronkowski is out, back surgery.
Oh, for the year.
You know what? They said it was an undisclosed amount of time, but it was herniated disc surgery. He's not coming back.
No, he's done, dude.
He's not. That's not something that a guy that takes hits like a herniated disc, doctor's not going to let him back out on the field. I think that changes things in the AFC dramatically.
Yeah, I think they're they have. That's interesting that you say that because now maybe you might want to look to some of the wide receivers because you had said that you thought they were going to go off this week.
I do. I think that New England, there is not a team or coach, Bill Belichick, in the league that is better at watching one game plan and taking film from another team and applying it the next week in a very, very sneaky Bill Belichickian kind of way. And last week, the New Orleans Saints, Sean Payton, absolutely annihilated Greg Williams' defense with the Rams. He lit them up. Him and Greg Williams had history with the Bounty Gate years ago. They were together. Williams was single-handedly responsible for Sean Payton's one-year suspension. I'm sure that the folks in Foxborough saw quite a bit of that game film and are aware that they can go in there and probably hang 35 on that Rams defense. And they're going to do it in a couple different ways, which leads me to a couple picks. So when I get to my team here in a minute, I want to throw a few things at you. But carry on with the rest of your stuff there.
Yeah, so basically that's my tight ends. Obviously, the other big names are always someone you can always go with the Greg Olsen or the Jimmy Graham if he plays. I think Jimmy Graham's just sitting out as a precaution. But and then I'm pretty up in the air as far as kickers go, only because it's so hit or miss, and a lot of these picks, especially if I went with Drew Brees, I was pretty poor by the time I got to the end. So I like Jalen Hurts. He's just got a pretty good average in points, and I could see Philly at Cincinnati. I could see him getting an extra field goal attempt or two, maybe a little. Because they're having some problems, Philly overall. Their offense isn't that dynamic.
No, it's not. They've been exposed. I think Doug Peterson's a good head coach, and I think that team's going to be fine. But their youth is showing.
Yeah, but that's the type of team I want to have a kicker. I want his kicker, because
when they stall out on their own on the opponent's 29, that's ideal.
Exactly. So I like them, and then depending on how much money you have, I also like Matt Bryant. Obviously, I like the kicking team, Matt Prater. Obviously, you want to go with the kickers in maybe the Detroit-Indy game. Either one would be a good pick, but I do have them too. And then defense, I have, and it's kind of interesting because it's the same game. I like the Broncos at Jacksonville.
Yeah, that's got a nice look to it, doesn't it?
It's got awesome. But how about this? I like Jacksonville. I think Trevor Siemian isn't playing, and so
I think he's going to play. He didn't practice, but I think he's going to play.
Okay. Well, keep an eye on that. If he doesn't play, then I like that play for sure. And that's what obviously when I made a team, I anticipated that. And that's only when I was broke from going all in with bigger guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you.
So I had low, very, because I'm broke. I have $0 with a couple lineups that have Drew Brees, David Johnson, and the big boys.
Yeah,
So
they're really starting to stretch you with some of these values. And look, the values are accurate. To put Brees, and you and I both do the same thing. I try to do some assumed values prior to looking at the teams on Sunday, just knowing, and you're not gonna hit the number, but you're gonna know who your top three are.
Yeah. Well,
and looking at the schedule, I guessed right. I said Brees, Stafford, Ryan.
Yeah, and that's fine, because the funny thing, the guys that are most likely to go off this week in wide receiver are the 6,000 to 7,000 guys.
Yeah, there's some nice room in the middle. I do think that I love Julio Jones in a lot of ways, but guys, we talked about this in pre-production, but guys like Amari Cooper, guys like Jordy Nelson, they're so touchdown dependent that at 7,400 and 7,800, I just don't know if you can do it. Guys like Demaryius Thomas at 7,100, I don't know that I can do it. Larry Fitzgerald, I can't.
Well,
let me tell you. Let me kick somebody down the road right in his face.
Yeah.
Allen Robinson.
I'm not touching that team offensively for the rest of the year.
No. So how in the hell is Allen Robinson against the Denver Broncos at $7,000?
I have no clue of why they did that, and that's funny. Again, how is Jordy against Houston? I know Jordy's a high dollar guy, but I'm not really excited to pick anybody against the Houston. Houston's pretty good against the pass. So
yeah, they've been fine.
I would rather go Devontae, who's 6,800.
It's got a lot more upside.
Way more. So in any of the lineups that I told you about, if I have a 6,800 slot, it wouldn't be stupid to do an identical lineup and pop Devontae in, because that just screams pick me.
It does. I agree. And look, it seems to me that anywhere outside the 20, Rodgers is looking for Devontae Adams. Jordy Nelson is drawing double coverage. Jared Cook's not very good as a tight end, but he's better than what they've had. Randall Cobb is as benign as it gets.
Yeah, man.
Adams coming along nicely.
Maybe his injuries, because he started off slow, and then he got pretty hot, and then he cooled off after 3 games, and now he's just been a pedestrian. He seems to be an afterthought.
You're talking about Randall Cobb?
Yeah, Randall Cobb.
Yeah, and I do think that some of the things you hear about Aaron Rodgers are probably pretty true. I have a feeling he can probably be a prick.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Well, the guy doesn't talk to his family and shit, so, I mean, come on.
Yeah, something's up there. Something is definitely rotten in the state of Denmark with Aaron Rodgers, but I think that even though if he is a prick, that's one thing, but he still is going to have guys that he's going to start trusting and relying on, and that guy is so far, it's been Devontae Adams.
Yeah, I think so.
Leaning in his direction is something I wouldn't be afraid of in the slightest. I want to move on to a lineup that I threw together here, and this is a Sunday through 1 o'clock through 8:30 on Sunday. Along those lines, there's a few things that I think look really, I hate to say juicy, but we've talked a lot about Drew Brees this weekend and how I think you almost have to stuff him in a lineup. But a couple other guys, I like Devonta Freeman. He's got a bad matchup against Kansas City, but I still think he touches the ball so often that mixing a Devonta Freeman into a lineup could be a really nice play. But if you don't have to, if you find a way around it, there's potential to find guys like a David Johnson, like you'd mentioned earlier. So try this one on for size. It's got a lot of room to play with. Drew Brees, David Johnson, Dion Lewis. He's a wild card, and he is my big wild card this week. But last week, my wild card was Taylor Gabriel.
Well, how much is Dion Lewis?
Dion Lewis is $5,000.
Okay.
I think that you may see some excitement out of that New England Patriots offense. Brady's got a knee injury. He's a little on the wobbled side, so can you imagine him taking a bunch of 7-step drops against a defensive line in Los Angeles that's pretty good? I can't. I think Dion Lewis gets involved. It's his 3rd week back. He hasn't put up a big day yet, which is what makes me reluctant to plug him in right away, but at 5,000, just one lineup. One lineup. What happens if he has a Dion Lewis-like day and he pops 125 yards and a receiving touchdown, and he's only owned in 10%? Could be pretty helpful.
At that cost, I wouldn't be hesitant, but I would expect the problem with them is there's now 3 running backs.
Speak up just a little bit for me.
I said the problem now is they have 3 running backs that
they
you're
do.
competitive with. So
yeah,
that's
right.
we always hate the dual running back dilemma. Now you got 3. That's the reason why each one of them is getting like 9 points. So
no, and you can never, ever in a million years trust Bill Belichick in any of the games that he plays with running backs or receivers. He's done that shit for years.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. The cheapest I went was Theo Riddick, and I think he's a great play at 6,500. And then the other guy that I went that's now kind of expensive is Jordan Howard at 74. So, you can do a good lineups with Jordan Howard and Theo Riddick, and then you got some bread left if you want to do it through Breeze or somebody. But again,
you've shed some quality light on the Dion Lewis play because it is a wild card. It's a true wild card. So that said, how do you feel about Melvin Gordon against the Buccaneers defense this week?
Not too good. I think, this is the matchups where Melvin Gordon hasn't established. He's had huge games, and then he's had some kind of duds. I know a lot of the offense goes through him. The Bucs D looked great.
Yeah, that was incredible.
I just don't think if I'm going to spend that money, I think there's going to be more of a sure thing that I would want to go with rather than him. It all depends on if I'm doing the 4 o'clock one only or what have you. But
sure.
Again, if I'm spending $8,000, I'd rather find $400 more and go with LaShawn McCoy.
Well, let me just run some of these numbers by you that involve Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon's got 12 rushing touchdowns on the season. He's averaging just about 83 yards a game. But the one thing that's jumping out at me that week 2 of the season he has 24 carries against Jacksonville. Week 6 against Denver, he has 27. Week 7, he has 22 against Atlanta. Week 8, he has 23 against Denver. Week 9, he has 32 carries against the Tennessee Titans. 10, he has 24 carries against Miami at home. And then by week 11, prior to their bye week, he has 17 carries against Houston. And I think he really wore out in that game. Is there a possibility that maybe Melvin Gordon is running out his string at this point?
Possibly.
That's a lot of carries. It's a lot of touches.
I know this. The Bucs give up only 9 rushing touchdowns, which is pretty good. It's the better half of the league.
The reason I'm beating. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I mean I think they have the ability to shut. When I mean shut down, it's hold them to under 15 points. So.
Yeah, and 8,000, 15 points is a bad number. That's a bad match. I'm trying to find in this lineup I have, so I'll give you the mix. I've mentioned Breeze and David Johnson. We'll skip that second running back slot and go to the wide receiver position. Michael Thomas. I really like Emmanuel Sanders against Jacksonville. I think Jalen Ramsey is their best corner. He is going to slide over and cover Demaryius Thomas. Emmanuel Sanders has got that potential to pop one or maybe 2. He is their Hail Mary. He is their over the top. He's the guy that takes the top off the defense. I just think it's a sexy pick. I'll mix Golden Tate, Vance McDonald, Seabass, and the Patriots defense. But it leaves me $8,000 to tinker with at that second running back position. So that's where you start to really juggle all these ideas. Do you mix in a Spencer Ware against Atlanta?
Man, he hasn't shown me much of anything in a while.
I'm just throwing all these variables at you and the listeners tonight. And tonight's been more of the confusing shows, but there's just so many things to grasp on, and I blame myself for all this, but I'm confused. I'll openly admit, I am really, really confused about what type of lineup to plug in. There's so many crazy matchups and so many things that are just dizzying to me tonight.
If I had $8,000, I'd spend $7,400 on Jordan Howard. I heard a stat today that was pretty interesting. I think